And we're back, the special Thanksgiving edition, Daru Strong Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Daru. Today, I have a special guest, Galahad Clark, who is the founder of the shoe that everybody seems to see me wear on a constant daily basis, is Vivobarefoot. Vivobarefoot is a minimalistic shoe. We're taking it back to the primal days where we are able to use our feet more efficiently to create torque, to create force. And again, just fixing the entire world, if we can, to actually work in a shoe that is going to be beneficial for your health, but also your performance. Now, before we get into the interview with Galahad, I have to make sure that we're shouting out sponsors, Revive MD, ReviveSubs.com. Go on there, check out my very own Phil Daru Athlete Stack. We have omega-3s, vitamin D3, we have an adrenal fix. We have collagen protein, all in that stack that I use myself personally, and I also have my athletes use as well. Also, the next one, go ahead and check out Athletic CBD. Athletic CBD is one of the best CBD companies that I could actually think about when I'm talking about getting an individual back into sport play, getting them recovered, any type of soreness issues. We use this. A lot of my clinicians here use it on the athletes. I definitely highly recommend them. Check them out. Go ahead, get the discount code Daru at your checkout, and you'll get a discount on that. Also, guess what? I have a discount code now for Vivobarefoot. Yes, I do. Daru Strong at your checkout. You'll get 20% off on that too as well. So go ahead, get yourself some shoes, put yourself in the right position to do work, and go ahead and shout out that discount code to get your 20% off. Also, obviously, we have a Black Friday sale for you guys. Black Friday, Cyber Monday. The entire store is going on 50% off. So go ahead. Click the link down below. Make sure you get on that. If you don't get the link down there, just go to my website, darustrong.com, and you'll find out all the information you need to get every program and all the courses 50% off for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Get after it. Now, on to the interview.
Welcome to the Daru Strong Podcast. Daru Strong Podcast.
Let's go. Mind over matter. Put your mind somewhere else and keep going. That little voice in your head is trying to stop you from getting to where you want to be. Be successful and keep moving forward.
With your host and world-renowned strength and conditioning coach, Phil Daru.
Now is it sixth generation Clark, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So go into detail, because we have a lot of coaches, but we also have a lot of fans from mixed martial arts that actually wear the shoes and also are running barefoot and moving barefoot. How did you go about getting into this type of shoe? And again, your bio background of just being in the shoe business in general.
Sure, yeah. So my family started making shoes in 1825, and they were basically sheep farmers, got into sheep tanning, and the first shoe they made in 1825 was basically a sheepskin moccasin kind of thing.
Yeah.
The brown Peter. And they're from a Quaker family. So a lot of the Quakers back in the day they weren't allowed to go to university, because in those days you had to swear an oath to go to university, and Quakers refused to swear oaths, so they set up a lot of businesses now that a lot of the things like Barclays Bank were set up by the Quakers, and Cadbury's chocolates, and obviously Clark's shoes, and a number of other businesses. Mm. So they built a great business. They were like a really tight community. You know, they put their energy into business rather than kind of university and trying to run the country, I guess. Mm-hmm. Empire as it was at those days. And funny enough, it was the grandson of the founders that actually got into kind of what we would term as barefoot in the late 19th century. Okay. And if you look at the kind of marketing campaigns from the sort of 1890s, they ran a marketing campaign called Hygienic Boots and Shoes. And if you read the small print, it's incredible. It'd be like you're reading almost like a Vivobarefoot ad, where it talks about all the science shows about wearing foot-shaped shoes, allowing your feet to regain their natural shape and strength, and we should, above all else, we should look after our children's feet, etc., and how a lot of modern ailments linked to the health of your feet, etc. This is in the 1890s. And, I think like a lot of the world in the 20th century, we just sort of turned left and got like, obviously we all tried to beat each other up in the first half of the 20th century. Mm-hmm. And then, technology came along and we carried on basically focusing on beating each other up and coming up with every single like crazy technological solution you can imagine. And, I like to think now, in the 21st century, the technology's moved on, the science has moved on, and we're actually starting to understand that all that technology in the 21st century and all that wonderful science, not all of it was all that good. A lot of the chemicals invented, a lot of the antibiotics and medicines and processed food, and frankly, a lot of the gels and foams and torsion bars and whatever the hell people invented to put into shoes, turns out it's all bollocks and does you more harm than good. So, really what's happening in the 21st century now, and I think it's happening in food, happening in sleep, as we understand circadian rhythms more, and sort of, the effect that unnatural light has on our systems and things. And it's happening in movement. It turns out that, kind of what our ancestors did, that was considered normal back then and is considered sort of supernatural now, generally work pretty well. And so, I like the idea that modern science and modern technology is actually bringing us back to ancient wisdom. And that's all that's happened with Vivo, funnily enough, is, it's actually a childhood friend of mine came up with the first Vivo shoe. I was already kind of in the shoe business. Mm-hmm. Completely separate from my family. That's a long story. My family haven't actually run Clark's for 30 years. It's been run by outside management, and sadly, Clark's has fallen prey to COVID. So, they were a business beset by 20th century problems, and there's a lot of businesses that are not set up for the 21st century that COVID are going to do in, like people, I guess.
Yeah. Why do you feel that? Why do you feel that is? I know that we all should be striving to go more online because you can reach the masses that way. That's usually where my business lies now. A lot of the times, obviously, I do a lot of offline stuff in person, but online, you guys are able to ship the shoes instead of having a physical store, brick and mortar. Now you're able to reach the masses, reach the world by distributing it through e-commerce and things of that nature. I think that that's something that every business should strive for, don't you think?
Yeah. And I mean, funnily enough, you actually it's probably almost the opposite of the masses, because what you're able to do is reach the masses of a group of people that are interested in, on your mindset, as it were. And obviously, Barefoot shoes are not conventional wisdom yet, and are not adopted by the masses yet.
Yeah.
But we're able to reach a really big global community of people that are already there, like a sort of already have that mindset, and it's a fairly advanced, educated group of people like yourself that have kind of thought through this, have experienced it, are willing. They're first movers, early adopters. Mm-hmm. And it's not easy. It's an unlazy thing to do, is to go back to barefoot, because, like getting away from these padded existences that so many of us have, lying around on sofas, wearing big padded shoes and kind of wandering to ready-made meals. That's also why COVID is, unfortunately, those are the people that, get the most harmed by COVID. They're the least resilient and the least ready to deal with something like a new pandemic. So, it's, as we started talking about at the very beginning, it's about health. It's about natural health. It's about staying outside of your comfort zone, because we all know the quickest way to get unhealthy is lie around, don't move much, and when you do move unnaturally, eat unnaturally, sleep unnaturally, loads of screens. You're not going to be ready for a disease to come along and hit you in between the eyes, right? You're a sitting duck.
Essentially, we are armoring our body up with these certain technologies nowadays, like we're talking about in the 21st century. I think that we're taking the minimalistic approach, but we're integrating that new technology to allow for both worlds to collide and be better in the long run. But I did want to do this because I know that a lot of people, and I've seen some ugly ass shoes in my day, especially with minimalistic shoes. You kind of put it back into having more style. Like, I don't mind actually wearing these out into like other places, not just the gym, but I can wear these out to the mall or to the store or out to eat. Where did you come in that perspective? Like, how did you be like, all right, I need to make sure that these shoes are actually styling enough where people can actually wear them and not feel like they're, just walking around with toe shoes?
Well, first and foremost, we kind of we're shoemakers first and barefoot shoemakers second in a way. But second, also we came up with this business when we were in our early 20s or whatever, right? And we were, we were still, frankly, trying to, top of mind was, not scaring away the ladies, basically.
Yeah.
So we were still in a sort of, and I come from the other shoe businesses I were in. The designers were architects and had sort of high sensibility of design. So it was, and it's still a massive challenge to not make flat wide shoes look like flat wide duck feet.
Yeah.
And the truth is, we still haven't cracked it. We still feel we've got so much further to go in terms of making the shoes better and better.
I wear the shit out of these things. I wear them like crazy. And for those who are listening on, I just showed them a pair of my shoes that I have. But what I would say is that they're very comfortable and they allow me to splay my toes out to grab the ground and create torque. And that's going to be something very beneficial when you're talking about creating force through the ground. And then especially from a coaching standpoint, I can my fighters and my athletes that I do train, a lot of them, let's face it, don't like to wear or not wear shoes when they train. They're afraid they're going to drop something on their toe. So it allows them to actually train like they're barefooted, but they have something on their feet so they don't feel super crazy when they're in the gym. And that's going to give us the opportunity to strengthen up the feet, which is then going to go up the chain of command. The kinetic chain is going to be stronger through that ability to create torque and force and grab the ground efficiently. And that's why the shoe is so important, especially like if you are trying to reevaluate a proper gait pattern. Again, also, you talk about this, and I've heard you talk about this in the past, is that you don't actually like people running in the shoe until they walk for a significant amount of time. And that's reconditioning the body to withstand that load with no support. And give me a rundown of why we actually started doing that with those high cushiony shoes and all that support, where now we're going back to the basics. Do you know why that actually happened?
Yeah, I mean, it was an unbelievable rabbit hole, honestly. I mean, there's different and it's never just one thing. It's like lots of things coming at the same time in many ways. But the truth is, for thousands of generations, humans basically made barefoot shoes, right? If you go to the Bushmen of the Kalahari, their hunting sandals, they persistence hunt, right? They run for 10 hours a day across the hot savannah, hunting down antelope and shit. And that is a perfect barefoot sandal. Mm-hmm. And you go all the way to the North Pole, and the Sami people herding reindeer in minus 40 degrees, their moccasins made out of reindeers are perfect barefoot shoes, right? And no matter where you go in the world, if it's the First Nations people in America or even the sort of Japanese monks, they all made beautiful barefoot shoes for each other that allowed the foot to do its natural thing. And most importantly, the big toe connect and sensory feedback kind of kick in. Now, depending on how you look at it, like basically heels came in. Where did heels even come from? Some people attribute it to horse riding. And so, people used to wear, and then it became a kind of fashionable thing. And there's sort of, people with the industrial revolutions and things, people started figuring out kind of living beyond their means, basically, and starting to just basically posh it out, and fashion kicked in. Fashion's been around for a long time. Ceremonial shoes have been around for a long time. But really, it started like, so it went from heels and the aristocrats riding around on their horses with their heeled shoes, and if you had a horse and you were a big guy in society, right? And those guys always had heels on, so that led to people wanting to wear heeled shoes. And come the 1930s, 40s, 50s, but everyone was walking around in little kind of hobnailed boots with heels on, right? And they weren't comfortable shoes to wear by any stretch of the imagination, but they were sort of fashionable, and they made shapes, and women were walking around in corsets and basically exaggerating their tits and their bums, which obviously heels make you do.
Yeah.
A lot of peacocking going around. And then the legend goes that Nike in the 60s were basically kind of the first Nike shoes were all basically barefoot shoes, and Bill Bowerman was a total barefoot nut, and all the tracks, they were all track runners, right? And they were all running with nothing like all those original Nikes. Mm-hmm. But as they started growing the business, people were getting injured because they were used to wearing heels, and then they were suddenly going to no heels. And as we know, like just walking around in constrictive shoes, it reduces the strength of your feet by up to 60%, probably 100%, right? So if you're just in your everyday life wearing normal shoes, your feet are probably half their just natural strength, regardless of any exercise. We know that because when people walk around in barefoot shoes for 6 months, nothing else, no exercise, just walk around at least 70% of the time, after 6 months, their feet gets on average 60% stronger, which is fucking crazy, right? That sort of, you don't see that in science, that kind of improvement. And that's no exercise, that's just walking around. But what that really says is how weak people's feet are to start with, right? Yeah. All they're doing is getting back to their kind of natural level if they just hadn't worn normal shoes. So what normal shoes do is just weaken the hell out of your feet, right? They just by basically constraining them, not allowing the feet to splay. You've got hundreds of intrinsic muscles in your feet, so you don't use them. You don't use it, you lose it. You know that better than anyone. And so what was happening in the 50s was people were walking around in heels for whatever reason. And so they had shorter Achilles, they had shorter, and that also, is profound, right? If you walk around in heels, like just you get used to basically your Achilles and your whole calf system shrinks. Then you suddenly going to spikes and track shoes, and it's a big adjustment. And actually, a lot of people get injured. This still happens today, obviously, when people try to transition too quickly from frankly wearing heel padded shoes to barefoot shoes. Yeah. So Nike got in a bunch of doctors, famously, and the doctors basically realized this, right? And they said, look, what you need to do is actually just make your running shoes more like their dress shoes.
Oh, okay.
And put a little bit of heel in.
Yeah.
A little bit of toe spring in. Lighter and softer.
Yeah.
Like
so they essentially were putting a Band-Aid on a bad issue.
Putting a Band-Aid on.
Yeah. Gotcha. That's crazy.
And then it just went from there. And people obviously found that more and basic, through the 60s, 70s, 80s, people were still basically prancing around in heels the whole time, right? Yeah. Not many people not wearing heeled shoes in their kind of working life. Yeah. Jogging took off in the 70s. Everyone was out running. Mm-hmm. Everyone's fucking feet were fucked. They're weak as shit. And they needed all the help they could get, right? They needed the padding and they needed the heel raise. Yeah. And that's why, and the truth is, it is for people that have really weak feet and are not that athletic, which are most people, frankly, it is you've got to take, to get back that natural foot strength, to be able to really use your feet in an energetic way, you've got to take it slow. It's a bit like having your arm in a cast.
Yeah.
Right. When you take the cast off, you don't go and play tennis straight away or go into a bloody arm wrestling competition.
There's levels, definitely.
Build it back up again, get your strength back, right? And that is what like people from, since the Victorian times wearing hobnail boots, just got weak feet.
So
That's a big problem in society.
yeah, I think that may have caused issues with the hamstrings all the way up the posterior chain, because now we put a huge emphasis on building the posterior chain, getting that strong. But if guys and girls are wearing heeled shoes, they're basically constricting and contracting and tightening up that backside, which that's also probably the reason why we have a large amount, there's other reasons why, but having more quad dominant individuals and quad dominant athletes because of that fact, where you're putting a large amount of load in the frontal positioning and the anterior positioning of your body. So yeah, and then what I've noticed is that I just got off of an ACL tear reconstructive surgery. So I had a full ACL rupture, and then I had a slight meniscus tear. Now I'm about 11 and a half weeks post-op, and I'm able to do plyometrics, I'm able to run, I'm able to jump efficiently, squat with load, and I walked in nothing but Vivos my entire time for prehab and for post-op. And again, obviously, I'm ahead of the curve when it comes to recovery. And I think that has a large amount to do with me just always constantly strengthening up my feet by simply wearing these shoes out in public, and also obviously working on the strengths that I need to with the rehab. But I can constantly work on my feet by being in the shoe or just walking barefoot if needed around the house. Now, I know a lot of people still walk with shoes inside their house, which is crazy to me. But I think that, people need to realize that strengthening up the feet is the foundation, it's your support system. And if you don't have that ability, then it's just not going to work throughout the entire body. So, but
we hear that all the time of people having like remarkable recovery times.
Yeah,
and you can link it to the hands. The feet are very similar to the hands, and when a hand gets injured, someone goes through a hand injury, the physio and the rehab on the hand is like to use the hand like as quick as possible and move it. Whereas when people injure, like you say, below the hip, below their legs and their feet, the rehab is often, you don't use it, and especially and like you say, the kinetic benefit of your feet actually moving. And all that, and that's linked all the way up to the thoracic spine, just by getting, there's up the spinal column, like because of the nerve, the sensory feedback from your feet, the sort of benefit as to the way your back works and functions.
Oh yeah.
Let alone your glutes and your hamstrings and your calves and everything. Right, everything is just working very differently.
Yep.
And like doctors still don't accept this. Right, there's the leading foot surgeon in the UK. Let's say one of the leading foot surgeons who's part of a group of the 15 leading surgeons. So he's basically come out of the barefoot closet, right? They're all in they're all in the closet, sort of pretending that they're the gods and they need to fix things, right? So 5 years ago, 90% of his patients, he would prescribe surgery or some kind of invasive action. At the very least, orthotics and some kind of insert into the kinetic chain, or cut and stitch and chop and whatever.
Yeah.
Right? 5 years later, he's gone through a sort of transformation, as it were, in terms of his mindset. He now reckons that 90% of his patients he can rehab and get well again without any kind of invasive. So he gives everyone an option when they come in now. You can either go under the knife or have this or that invasive procedure, or I can teach you a rehab process, get your feet strong and healthy again, get you moving in a healthy, natural way again, and we can probably clear this up without surgery. 90% of people choose, well, let's try the rehab.
Yeah,
and he has an almost, but of the 15 surgeons that he's a kind of member of, these leading foot and ankle surgeons, there's only one other that has kind of come to his way of thinking, even though it's just like so irrefutable. And so, so you've got the vast majority of the medics and the surgeons that still are in this kind of that mindset.
Well, that's a money issue there at that point. They're just wanting to put them underneath the knife.
That trickles down.
Yeah, for sure.
all the way through the medical chain, right down to the podiatrist comes in. He in 20 minutes he can get $500 off you for a pair of orthotics paid for by insurance.
Oh yeah.
Or he can get nothing from you and help you naturally rehab.
Yeah,
tough choice.
Yeah, let's weigh it out. I remember I had to pay for knee braces. That was like $500. I ditched that thing within the second day. I'm like, damn, I didn't even need this thing, which is, it's unfortunate, but what's that?
But yeah, the for-profit medical industry, it's incentivized to sell you shit. It's not incentivized to make you well.
For sure, they make you act like you need them, and that's one thing that I like with a lot of the physical therapists that I work with is that, with one of my physical therapists, Dr. Christiana Marin, who also wears Vivos, I basically seen her maybe 3 times, and that was to basically pick her own brain on certain things. That wasn't anything that, she made me do or anything like that. She actually had a set system in place. I didn't have to pay her to come in, obviously, because I was doing it all on my own. And let's face it, I can do my own physical therapy. But the only times I actually needed to pay her was when it was for her time. And even then, it wasn't all that, oh, you need me type deal. Whereas the point, what I'm getting at is that you have good clinicians, you have good physicians that do want to actually help somebody, as opposed to just getting a buck out of you and knowing that that's not really the best or optimal way to get somebody back into full sport play or to just feeling better. So, but that's a rant that I'll go into a next chapter with, but whatever.
The science is and that's what we were talking about earlier, where the science is, funny enough, catching back up with all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like the new science is showing that just going back to nature seems to work pretty well for a lot of people.
Exactly.
And that's, we see that, we're just getting your biome working as well and getting your bloody, all the bacteria flowing through your body again. Yeah. And et cetera, et cetera. We could go on and on about that.
Can you tell me that story? I think I heard it on one of the podcasts you did, but you were talking about how I guess, I don't know who it was, but an individual or a company was trying to basically mold children's feet into a particular shoe so that it could be more stylish or something along the lines of that. They were. Can you go into it a little bit?
So the story roughly is I was hanging out with one of the world leading kids shoe designers, right? And who happens to work for very big, is a freelance designer. So she works, about a 50-year-old lady, and she worked for British companies, German companies, French, Italian companies. And, we were talking about Barefoot, and sort of, I was kind of going, what's your feeling about this? Because kids' shoes are like, and I'd seen in a big shoe company, which will remain nameless, the kids' lasts, right? And you know what I mean by last? A last is a sort of plastic foot shape that you make a shoe on. So it's like basically the inside shape of a shoe. So it's literally looks like a foot, but in most cases it doesn't. So I saw all the lasts lined up from literally from sort of like infant to let's say a 10-year-old, right? All the sizes, and they're all and so in the shoe, if you go to a shoe shop and you see the infant shoes and the toddler shoes, they actually look pretty shoe shaped. They're pretty flat wide, they're really thin, flexible. They're actually quite good kind of barefoot shoes, as it were. And then suddenly you get to about age 4 or 5, and suddenly the shape suddenly looks nothing like a foot at all. It looks like a sort of weird banana shaped thing that, with a little, with a little raise and the toes poking up. And I was saying to the guy, and the technician, I was like, look, you can see those look like feet, but those look like nothing like feet. And you're putting feet into those things, and then the feet doesn't suddenly change from a foot looking thing to a non-foot looking, And anyway, so that's that's the logic, right? So it just doesn't, that's the way the whole shoe industry is set up. And this guy's like, yeah, I don't know, but that's just the way we've always done it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, this lady was like, yeah, but I was sort of, berating her on barefoot and saying, come on, you surely got to realize to just allow the child's foot to develop naturally is the best thing. You just leave it alone and just don't interfere with it. It will naturally develop strong and healthy. And, and she was like, yeah, but, the thing is, like, you have different shapes in Italy or Germany, and what works in the French market doesn't necessarily work in the English market. And I said, what do you mean? She's like, well, the shapes are all different. You can't you need to have different styles and stuff. And I was like, what? So children's feet are different shapes in Germany than they are in Italy, than they are in England. And she just kind of like kept on talking and digging herself into a deeper and deeper hole. And the truth is that most kids, I would say more than 90% of kids in the rich Western world arrive in adulthood with deformed feet, with deformed, weak feet. It's worse than just weak, because they are literally getting deformed, because the bones in a child's foot are not fully developed until they're sort of 13, 14 years old, to their mid-teenage years. So it's very plastic, it's very malleable. Mm. So the other good thing is it can regain its shape quickly, but it can equally like get deformed quickly. For me, it's like as bad as giving kids cigarettes. It's like it is screwing up kids. And they arrive in adulthood through no choice of their own, with really weak, deformed feet because of all the shoes they wear. And shoe designers and the shoe industry can't see it, and it's just like, oh, it's just the way it always is. Yeah. And it's a scandal. It's like, adults are going to smoke and drink and do whatever the hell they want to do to have fun, and that's fine. That's their choice. And they kind of, on for the most part, they know it's unhealthy, mm-hmm. and they're kind of making a conscious choice. But you can't give kids bloody cigarettes and moonshine, right, when they're bloody 7 years old.
Well, you can. Yeah, I was gonna say that you probably could, and I know a couple people may do that in other countries, but yeah, no, I get you. And you could see, like, when we have general clients come in, and they just haven't done anything for a long time, and they've been put in these shoes that just basically trap their toes and contort their toes in all these positions. They have limited ankle function. They have very poor and weak hips, a weak core. So all this stuff comes into play, and that does come from, them, not so much them maybe, but their parents putting them in these positions or in these shoes that doesn't allow them to move freely like a true human would. So it's very, very important. I have my son, wear some shoes that, again, at some points I'm like, all right, we're not going to put him in these shoes. And even though he likes them, he thinks they're cool. My son's 6 years old. I'm going to make sure that he's, we're going to give him some Vivos like that. Basically, that's what we're going to do, but at the same time, I see a lot of his classmates and everything, and the kids they're wearing these shoes that are trapping their feet and causing bad issues down the line, or going to cause issues down the line, from a biomechanics standpoint. And also you're looking at it from just a safety standpoint. But yeah, it's unfortunate for sure. That's crazy how they just was like, all right, yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and put these kids in these shoes, not knowing, or maybe just not caring, that it's negatively affecting their entire movement gait. It's just crazy.
Yeah, man, look, if you're in Florida, you should you should keep your kid out of shoes as much as possible in general. Like, just.
Yeah, I mean, I wish at times it's raining out here, so it's a little different. But yeah, definitely, like he runs around the gym, and he's got no shoes on in the gym. He does his squats, he does his deadlifts, even though I know a lot of people are like, oh, they shouldn't be doing that. Trust me, my son knows how to lift. I've taught him. It's not heavy, so don't worry about it. But definitely, he's running around here. He does martial arts, he does wrestling. So I mean, he's definitely strengthening up his biomechanics from there. But yeah, a lot of kids nowadays, I see that.
We've been doing this for more than 10 years now, right? And so there's people that I know now that have had kids, let's say, who are now even 10, 11, 12 years old, and they've really never let them not wear barefoot shoes. And if you see a kid like who really like kept the natural shape and strength of their feet, it's like awesome.
Yeah,
it's because it's the one part of their and everything else just looks better, as it were. It just, it's kind of like when you go to Thailand or something, and you see sort of indigenous people and you see their feet and you're like, whoa, what the fuck are they? And they're like really, but you see it in a Western kid, right? And it looks kind of freaky, but they're cool and strong as well. Like it's and that's just coming through now. We're just starting to see these Western barefoot kids, and it's a beautiful thing to see. I must say.
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely a good thing. I'm glad that I was able to find the company and really put it together. I'm loving the fact that now I get to work with you guys. We have our own discount code. So I like to work with things and people that I agree with. I truly believe in what you're trying to do, which is important for me, because I'm really not going to push any product or anything of that nature that I don't believe in. So, I mean, it's really good in that way. But I wanted to ask you this, and this is probably just a personal thing for me, because I'm a businessman. I know you've been successful as one. What is your daily routine look like nowadays? Now that you running a business, but obviously being on lockdown, what do you do when you first wake up, and how does that set up your day?
Well, the first lockdown in England, they shut everything down, right? All the schools, everything. And so, and we have a little beach house down in Devon. It's kind of, I guess the equivalent of Florida, but extremely different, let's say. Probably more like New Hampshire, or whatever. That northern coast bit.
Gotcha.
But anyway, like so for 4-5 months, like I had this incredible lifestyle where I was getting up, able to go for an ocean swim with the kids, little surf, whatever. We're like, one of the things we're really into is swim run, where you run a bit, swim a bit, run a bit, kind of go down the coast, jump off some cliffs, whatever.
Nice.
And then you sort of come back for a 9 o'clock meeting, and that's how your day started, right? And so we had this incredible and there was no one because everyone was sort of locked in, as it were. Mm-hmm. So it was like this beautiful moment, as it were. I'm now back, it's now sort of semi-lockdown in England, so we are meeting up together. But what's inspired us to do is we're never going to open up our office again in London. Mm. I was going into the office a lot every day. Now I don't, and there's a lot of companies all over the world now are kind of obviously gone to super flexible working. Yeah. So we're going to open up a beautiful retreat place, basically in the wild, and we'll expect people to show up there 6 to 10 days a month.
Nice.
And then they're flexible the rest of the time. But I mean, clearly you need to meet up with your colleagues, because otherwise you go a bit mad, or your friends and things. And so. But if you can do that outdoors and it's, COVID's kind of great for that, because it's like, the safe thing to do is the healthy thing to do, which is to kind of go out into nature, be wild, be out there be outdoors as much as you possibly can, get as healthy as you possibly can. And, so we're going to run the company like that. And obviously we're going to try and live our lives more like that. And I feel like an idiot, honestly, for going into London as much as I was going before COVID. I mean, we're not going to do that anymore. So nowadays, I live kind of in the countryside, just outside London, and obviously everyone's trying to bloody figure out how to not get zoomed out.
Yeah, crazy.
But I try to do a lot of meetings by phone. I do quite a lot of calls just walking around now out in the countryside, and
that's nice.
Sit in some woods or something, right, with a mobile, and
that's great.
Getting radiated by 5G.
The beautiful nature, and then boom, right here.
We come back with like ears look like cauliflowers.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, listen, I'm not opposed to that. Luckily, I don't have that. I obviously was a fighter for 8 years, and believe it or not, I have a little bit here, but nothing crazy. And trust me.
I would play rugby a lot, so you can see.
Rugby too. Yep.
Looks like a sort of elf's ear.
Yeah, man. Yep.
What was his tackle on this side? Right? as my hitting sides. But
Nice. Yeah, I think when I was a kid, I was like trying to like make it happen for myself. You know, that was one of the things that was like a rite of passage. You had to do that. So I don't know why, but now I'm not worrying about that at all. Actually, I'm glad that I don't really have that at the moment. But hey, listen, I do appreciate Galahad for coming on. You know, anything that you need from me, let me know. I'm going to go ahead and shoot the intro for this. So I'll give them your info, give them your bio, and then also make sure that we shout out the entire brand. Go on to, Vivobarefoot.com, correct?
Got it, yeah.
Yeah, so just go on there, and then Instagram is also Vivobarefoot. If you want to go ahead and tell them your Instagram too, by the way, that'd be great.
Oh, I mean, I sadly haven't, I've sort of given up Instagram a little bit, but yeah, it's mainly through Vivo. You know, the Vivo social media is enough for me.
All right, so check them out. I'm telling you, these are people ask me all the time what kind of shoes I'm wearing. So here it is right here. I'm not gonna ask her, well, I'll answer a couple questions, but I'm not gonna say it too many times anymore. I'm gonna go on YouTube, I'll tell them that, and then we'll go from there. But then thanks again, Galahad, I do appreciate it. And hopefully I'll be out there in London at some point. I do a lot of seminars out there, so we'll definitely link up.
To meet some of you and your crew, man.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, have a good day.
Take it easy, everyone. Don't rush into it.
Yeah, no, we're good. We're good for right now. Yeah, for sure. All right, thank you.
Peace out, man. Thanks, dude.
All right, see you later.